an interview with Norris Church Mailer. That's Norris, Norris, Church Mailer, Mailer, in Brooklyn, New York, on Thursday, October 30th. And this is Dotson Rader, Dotson Rader. And this is for the London Times. Okay, this just a little bit so I can make sure this is working.
Okay, testing. Can you hear my voice? Is it too loud? Is it too low?
So, tell me about your father and your mother.
Well, I grew up, I guess I'm exactly what you call it, blue collar life. My father ran heavy equipment. He learned how to run equipment when he was in the Navy and Seabees, cranes and road graders and stuff like that. So he worked on the roads. And my mom, she was the daughter of sharecroppers and picked cotton and grew up in the middle of a cotton patch. And then when I was about 10, she went to beauty school. And so we had a Steel Magnolia's beauty shop out in our garage.
Where in Arkansas was this?
A little town called Atkins.
So how far is that from Little Rock?
About 65 miles west.
And so Little Rock was, that's what I don't know. So Little Rock was the big town.
Little Rock was the big town.
And you have brothers, sisters?
Only child.
And your father was tell me about your father. Your father was a strong man.
He was strong, yeah. He was an outdoors man. He worked outdoors most of his life in all the elements, the rain, the snow, whatever way he could. He was strong. We come from strong people. My grandfather was a mule skinner. I just wrote a whole chapter about my which I hope to let you read, which you would love. My ancestors who came over here in the early 1700s. They were running from the law, or I don't know what they were trying to do. They came over here in the early 1700s unless there was some reason to, right? But there were that wave of immigrants from England and Wales and Ireland and Scotland that came over and settled in the Ozarks, the Appalachians.
Do you know what part of England your family was?
I don't. I wish I did. Don't have to do it.
And you were raised, what kind of religion were you?
Baptist. Free Will Baptist.
You were Free Will Baptist.
Free Will Baptist.
What does that mean, Free Will Baptist, as opposed to, say, Southern Baptist?
Well, they all have these little differences in their doctrine. I mean, as far as I can tell, the difference between Southern Baptist and Free Will Baptist is very minute. Free Will Baptist means you can backslide, which means you can be saved and then you can sin and then you can still go to hell.
There's no eternal security.
No eternal security. But the Southern Baptists say once you're saved, you're always saved. But then there's the argument about, well, what if there's a guy who's a preacher and he's saved and always saved, and then he runs off with the deacon's wife, and then their argument is, well, he was never saved in the first place. They've got answers for all these little things. They endlessly debate them, but it's kind of all the same thing. It's all kind of fundamentals. Bible is everywhere is true, and you got to do this whole list of things to get to heaven, or you'll go to hell. Anybody who's not a fundamentalist Christian is on their way to hell. And hell looms very large in the religion I grew up in.
But you would be believer.
Yeah.
Because I would come back to that later, because it came to New York.
Mm-hmm.
But in my, New York, what I came into from what I came from, it's a big shock.
Oh yeah, it was a big shock. It's a totally different world. I don't know why you and I, for some reason, it didn't affect us like it did a lot of people. We somehow got out of it. I don't know exactly how we managed to do that.
We'll just talk about it later.
Yeah.
But you're 15 years old, right? Where are you?
Right now, I'm 15. I'm in high school.
Where is that?
Atkins, Arkansas. Having a great time. I loved high school. It was one of the best times of my life. I had a picture-perfect childhood. I just had a great time. I missed everything in high school, all the clubs and all the activities, and did well in class, and had boyfriends and friends, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful childhood.
You were a popular girl.
I was a popular girl.
Did you go out for your cheerleader?
I did go out for cheerleader, but I didn't ever make cheerleader.
You never made the cheer team?
Mm-mm.
No. Why was that? Somebody had it in for you?
I had it in for me, I guess. I guess I wasn't popular enough or coordinated enough or something. I never got it. I was the homecoming maid my senior year, which was a big deal, but I never got to be a cheerleader, which was a very big sadness in my life.
What kind of boys did you go out to?
My first boyfriend, who actually married, was a football player and very funny and good old boy. I mean, that's all there was around at that time. He just kind of went out with who was there.
So when you attracted to, I'm talking about people, about character, you attracted to guys in high school who were, the goers, the real ambitious doers, the guys who have a future, you know
Sure. Oh yeah, of course I did. Although I don't know how many kids in high school had all that. It was. Was I ambitious?
No, I mean, in terms of what guy, what kind of man. My theory, Norris, is that we usually, that when a marriage works, I mean, you had a marriage that worked for a long time. When a marriage, it survived. Mm-hmm. And it's usually because in that marriage is the joining of needs. Mm-hmm. I mean, cliche, people confuse what they want and what they need. Yeah. And so my question is, even when you're young, when you're drawn to a certain type of personality, if there's something, some women are drawn to people like their fathers.
Yeah, I guess we were such a homogeneous population. Everybody went to church, everybody kind of did the same thing. I mean, there wasn't a vast difference in the boys. I mean, they all played football, they all went to some church or other. We all went to the movies on the weekend. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of big difference in the guys. I mean, obviously, personality-wise, there were. But in high school, you really didn't know what you were going to be. The big problem is I grew up to become an artist, and my first husband grew up to become a nuclear engineer. And at a certain point, we just diverged, and we didn't have the same interests at all. He loved hunting and fishing, and I didn't like that stuff at all, and we really found out we had nothing in common. But in high school, of course, you always have a lot of stuff in common because you have football games and, Saturday night dates and all of that. So it's kind of a danger in a way to marry your high school sweetheart.
Is that what you did?
I did, yeah.
Can I use his name?
Yeah, Larry Norris.
Larry Norris. So that's where you get the Norris.
That's where I get the Norris. I know, that's sick.
Oh, that's news.
That is so sick. To wind up with my first husband's last name as my first name, and then my second husband's last name. I mean, there's no me in there anymore. Where am I?
Who is your second husband? Norman Mailer. So you basically Norris Mailer are the names of two men who ruled your life.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And there's no, Barbara Davis is lost. Barbara Davis is no longer anywhere.
Your real last name is Davis.
My name is Barbara Davis.
Barbara Davis.
Mm-hmm. And if I had to do it over again, I would stay Barbara Davis. I wouldn't have changed it.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Because it's interesting that you would take the names of these two men. I mean, it's almost like the obliteration of the self.
It is the obliteration of the self, and it was done almost on a whim. Back when I got married the first time, well, also the second time, women just took their husband's name, and there was no question that you were going to change your name when you got married. So I became Barbara Norris. And then when I came to New York, even though I was divorced, I kept the name Barbara Norris, and I went up to Wilhelmina to become a fashion model, and she thought Barbara Norris was a very boring name for a model, which it is. And she said, why don't you just be Norris? You just be one model name, Norris. And I thought, okay, well, why not? I mean, that was young and stupid. And Wilhelmina suggested that. And so I started becoming Norris, and then you can't go through life with one name. You've got to have driver's license and sign papers and all of that. So my real name is Davis, and I was already calling myself Norris, so I didn't want to be Norris Davis. That didn't sound very good. And Norman and I just sat down and we made up the name Church. It was kind of a silly whim. I'm a Christian, and Church is an English name, and which is the heritage. And so we just made Norris Church. We thought it sounded good, and I've been stuck with it all these years.
But I want to go back. I want to get to about your first coming to New York, but you being in this apartment when I met you.
Right.
You talked about that your first husband, Mr. Norris, wanted to be a nuclear engineer.
He didn't want to then. That's what he wound up becoming. Actually, that's not the correct title. He wasn't a nuclear engineer. He was a nuclear something else. He
wanted to go into. He was
involved in a nuclear
technology.
Yeah.
And the question is about him. The question is about you. You said you wanted to be an artist. When did you? Because you're a wonderful artist. When were you aware of the fact that this is what I was meant to be? This is what I want to be. This is who I am.
When I was in my freshman year in college, we didn't have art in high school when I went. they just didn't have the course. It was a very small country school, and we didn't have that stuff. And went to college, and I took an art class, and I always knew how to draw. It was always like, "Go draw my boyfriend for me," or draw something. I drew stuff for the newspaper. I was the editor of the school newspaper and stuff like that. But I took this art class and just absolutely fell in love with it, and I knew that's what I wanted to do.
And this is at what college?
Arkansas Tech.
Arkansas Tech, which is where?
Russellville.
In Russellville. Yeah. Is that closer to Little Rock or the
Yeah, it's further away from Little Rock. It's about 12 miles from Atkins. It was the big town.
Okay. So, and were you married at this point?
No, I got married between my sophomore and junior years of college.
In college. And do you know what year that was?
1969.
1969.
Mm-hmm.
So you graduated high school when?
67.
1967. And so I'm just trying to get the chronology straight in my head.
Okay.
When you graduated from high school, you were already dating around and becoming a future husband.
Right.
And did he go on to school, which college was
he? He was 2 years older than me. He was already there at Tech.
And did you go there because he was there?
I went there because he was there. I actually got a scholarship to a totally different school, and he talked me into going where he went. So this, would you say this was the first time that in a sense you had to bend your will to another man, to a man? Well, I guess so, if you don't count my dad. I mean, I was always trying to do his will. I wanted to please him. But I didn't actually, I never thought I was bending my will to his. He even forced me to go there. I wanted to go there because I was in love with him. But
was your father annulled?
No, he was very warm and loving.
Not really.
Yeah.
Very cold.
Yeah, he was a preacher.
Yeah, exactly.
My father was a deacon. He was a preacher.
When you're at college, when you're at college, you get married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got married because he was going to go to Vietnam, and we had to get married before we went to Vietnam. Otherwise, I would die and go to hell because we had slept together, and I didn't want to. I had to marry him, obviously.
Walking through that logic.
Yeah, well, it's not logical unless you grew up in Fundamentalist Baptist Church, but it's. Sleeping with somebody you're not married to is like an #1 sin.
Yeah.
So unless you can sort of say, well, we're married in the eyes of God. That was a good one, you know. So we are going to get married eventually, so it's okay to sleep together. But then you realize, oh, well, what if he goes off and gets killed? I don't get to marry him, and then I'll die and go to hell. So we had to rush around and get married before he went to Vietnam. And why he agreed, I don't know. I guess he loved me. I can't think of any other reason he would do that.
Did you love him?
I thought I did at the time.
And how long was he away?
A year. Actually, not quite a year. He was with the first group that were withdrawn early, so he only had to be over 10 months.
We returned at what, 1970?
1971. He went over just before Christmas of 70 and came back in October of 71. And while he was gone, I got pregnant 2 weeks before he left, or a week before he left, or whatever, and had our son while he was over there.
When that was born?
Mm-hmm.
But when that was some of the worst of Vietnam, because that's when the Cambodian version happened, the bombing of Hanoi, all that happened.
He was right in the middle.
There haven't many men there. That was a terrible time.
It was a terrible time.
Did he come back changed?
He did. I can't exactly say how. I mean, if you ask him, he'll say nobody alive can go through what he went through and not be changed. It was all very interior. He wasn't someone who could share his feelings very easily or talk about things, which is a big part of the problem.
Was he remote from the? Tell me about how that affected the marriage, the war.
Well, I don't know that the war affected the marriage so much. It's just that the two of us, we just grew apart. We just weren't, as I said, we weren't compatible. We didn't really like the same things. We both were just too young. I certainly was too young to get married. I only had one boy in my life, and basically me, the same for him. It just.
Each one of you were the first ones who were in love.
Yeah.
When someone is. That's what encouraging kids to marry young is so much. Because separation when you're in your early 20s, you change so much. Mm-hmm. You could be with someone in your 40 and not see them for 2 years, and you take it right where you left off because they are who they are. Mm-hmm. What was it about him that you loved?
There's that indefinable quality of sexual attraction, I guess. I was very attracted to him. He was cute. He looked like Burt Reynolds. He had blue eyes and dark hair, and he was very funny. He had a very funny sense of humor. He made me laugh all the time. He was one of the cool kids. He was, a big football player, and he was just fun. He was a great guy.
And was he from a working family like yours?
Yeah, his dad was a farmer. And
His dad was a farmer.
his dad was a farmer, and they raised watermelons and produce, and that was the cash crop. And they had cows and horses and stuff, all the whole farm stuff.
Yeah, let's go check this one more time.
About all the stuff we're talking about.
The other thing is, you drew people and sketched people, and you took this class in college, and you suddenly thought, well, this is big. Mm-hmm. But that's a very unusual thing for somebody coming from your background. It's like the background I came from. Becoming what I became was very unlikely, because you think to yourself, where the fuck did you get that idea?
I know.
Why would we like everybody else? Yeah. So that's basically my question: is where did you get? You're married, you're in college, you're pregnant. How at that point? How did you? Was what you wanted in life in terms of who you are as a person? Was that beginning to take form? Did you have some sense of what you wanted?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In college, I wanted to be a writer as well as a painter. I was doing both when I was in college, pregnant with my son. My husband was in Vietnam. I started writing a book. A series of short stories that my first novel sort of was based on. And
that started that long.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, but I was really too close to it. It was happening at that time. It was my husband had sent me these great letters from Vietnam about the war and about the battle plans, and drew little diagrams and sent photographs. It was just a wonderful chronicle of the war. And unhappily, when I left him, he burned everything up. So. Oh yeah, I was so upset because even then I was saving it for my book. I had to write this book to write.
But like I said, gifts to people.
I know.
They have no right to do that.
Well, I think when you're mad, you don't really care about somebody's rights, do you?
But did you want to be? Tell me what. You want to be a writer and also painter. Mm-hmm. You became both. But.
I became both. Well, and it wasn't very realistic to do either one and make a living in Arkansas. So my out was to be a teacher. So I was accredited to teach art and English, and I taught both the first year I taught, and then the second year I got a job teaching high school art, which is the best thing to teach. It's the most fun thing.
What year did he break up?
Let's see, he came back in 71, and we split up at the end of 72, and the divorce became final in 73.
And what provoked was it a series of just small things, or was it a big?
No, it was just growing apart over the years, and I was just unhappy. I just didn't want to be married. I was smothering. I just wanted to be a kid again, and go out with guys and have fun and go dancing, and be free. And I'd never done that before. It was just a lot of responsibility.
Did he help support that?
Well, he was having a hard time finding himself when he got back. He took a series of jobs he didn't like. I taught physics in school for a while. He didn't like that. And this is not a bash my ex-husband talk. I don't want to go into what he did do. He was a decent guy. He just.
But the point of the question is, you tell me you don't have a husband, right? And you got a baby, a small boy, and you got to support yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I was pretty much the breadwinner. He contributed, but not much, frankly. We don't have to go into that.
No, I'm not going to go into it. Yeah. I'm just trying to find what your situation is.
Well, the situation is I was too young. I had never been a teenager. I never had that dating experience, really, and I've been thrown into being a grown up and supporting a family, and much too soon for my taste. And I guess I just wanted to. Being a high school teacher just underlined it all for me, because my kids I was teaching were having so much fun, and I wanted to be like them. I didn't want to be the old lady. I wanted to be one of them.
Where did you teach high school?
In Russellville.
Mm-hmm. Did you have an idea when you were younger, when you were, say, teenager, how beautiful you are?
Well, everybody always tells you you're beautiful, and you just after a while, it's like, yeah. You take it for granted. I entered some beauty contests, none of which I really won. The only one I ever won was Little Miss Little Rock when I was 3 years old. That one I won.
That's famous.
Yeah, the famous one. And I ran for Miss Arkansas Tech, and I got 4th runner-up or something. But I was one of the pretty girls. I knew that. But
how did you get to Little Rock?
How did I get to Little Rock?
Yeah, one thing I want to get is how you met Bill Clinton.
I didn't meet him in Little Rock. I met him in Russellville.
Yeah,
he was campaigning for Congress, and I went to a fundraiser for him, and we met, and I go into that too in the book, so you can read that chapter.
What's he like? What was he like?
Oh, he was charismatic and charming and single and handsome, and all the girls were after him, and he liked that. He liked all the girls.
Was he, how long did you date him? Did you?
We can call it that. I guess we saw each other off and on for about a year. Hillary was on the scene, except she was living in Washington, and so I didn't know that she existed until election night, which again, I really know about it.
But he never mentioned her?
No, never mentioned it at all.
You told me a story once about love, which I want you to tell me if you could, about, I think you were in a campaign office or something, and he was running for Congress, and you were working as a volunteer with these other women, and suddenly this woman shows up. Okay.
Oh yeah, this is.
And she's really aggressive and rude.
Oh, this was the night of the election night. I went to headquarters. We were all there at the headquarters the night, on the election night, and there was this woman who was clearly running everything. She was on the phones and running back and forth, and bossing people around and telling me what to do. And I was like, "Who is that?" And it was her. It was Hillary. And the news was, "This is the girlfriend," and we were all like, "What? This is the girlfriend?" And she was.
You had no idea who she was
until
that time?
No idea.
Was she in dowdy then?
Yep,
with
totally.
The glasses?
Totally. I think her pride was not to nod her head toward feminine accoutrement.
Do you think that was my feeling about her? Because I know a lot of women like her. Is that she deliberately made herself unattractive?
I think she did. I mean, she didn't deliberately try to enhance her looks, via makeup or clothes or anything. Yet the clothes were kind of baggy and colorless and shapeless, and the hair was, just kind of frizzy and no haircut and the big thick glasses. I mean, she was intellectual, and that's what she wanted to be. She wanted to be this intellectual person, and I guess compete with men on their own level. But that's what she did.
Yeah, when I was in my 20s and knew a lot of people on the left, and almost, with few exceptions, the women were exactly like Hillary. And it took me a long time to figure out why. And I'm just talking about simple things like not doing personal hygiene, and not, and going a week without washing your hair.
Well, that I could attest to. I don't know how often she was.
No, I'm not talking about her. Yeah. I'm just talking about that. And and we were all feminists, and remember in SDS and after the War Movement, anti-war movement. Now, Greg got the idea that the reason they're that way, Norris, is because they don't, to somehow make yourself look pretty, to make an effort to be pleasing, is to somehow to submit yourself to male taste. Yeah. To acknowledge that it's important to you what men think about you.
Right. You're selling out. You're selling out your gender somehow.
I never
understood it. I love the whole idea of the hippies, the whole freedom and peace and love and all of that stuff, but I always use makeup and took baths every day, wash my hair every day. I mean, it was...
I don't doubt it. I did too. I did too. What was Bill Clinton like? I mean, was he, we're going to go to Pat and I coming down to Little Rock. Right. Okay, yeah. So when because I have a very definite sense of him. I was actually wild about him when I met him in Little Rock. But when you met him, if he's running for Congress, you would lose, right?
He lost. He got a lot closer than people thought, because he was running against a very strong incumbent.
Against a strong incumbent. But what was he like then? He was a very young man then.
He was very young. He was very sure of himself. He's just like he is now. He'd get up there and had this incredible memory, and he made you think he cared about you and what was going to happen to you, and could do something about it. He was intelligent. That's what I was attracted to. I've always been attracted to intelligent men, which could be Norman. But I guess if I was ever jealous of Hillary at all, and I wasn't, because Bill and I didn't have anything that was close to a romance. I mean, it was not we just went out a few times. It wasn't any kind of deep relationship. But when I saw Hillary and saw what she looked like, I realized that the two of them had to have some kind of intelligent connection, which I didn't have with him. He wasn't interested in that with me. It was very hard to sit and have conversations with him. He was always, during the campaign especially, he didn't have time. He was always running here, running there, and, knocking on my door at 2 a.m. and that kind of thing. And after a while, I just said, I can't deal with this.
You think he was did you have a sense that, I'm going to ask you the same question about the moment. Did you have a sense that that this guy was going places, that you had a sense that he was I mean, I've had there were people that I've met that have gone on and things, where you had a sense that they're somehow in history.
I knew he was going to be the president. I knew it then. I had illustrated this little book called Idols and Axle Grease that was written by Idols and Axle Grease.
IDOLS?
IDOLS and Axle Grease. Yeah, it's written by Francis Irby Galtney, who was a friend of Norman's who introduced us.
Can you spell her name, please?
GWALTNEY. Francis, FRANCIS, Irby, IRBY. And I gave Bill Clinton a copy of it because it had just come out.
Do you have a copy of it?
I do somewhere.
Have you illustrated that?
I illustrated it.
Was that your first?
It's my first.
Published?
My first published book. And in my signing the book to him, I said something about, I'll see you in the White House. I mean, I knew he was going to be the president. I just knew it, which is not too hard if you had a little imagination.
Well, I just thought the thing about Clinton and I that struck me right away was his unbelievable presence. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I didn't know him well. I mean, which one I was drunk half the time. But he was talking to you. You're the only person in the world.
Exactly. He and Jackie Kennedy, those two. I mean, I don't know of anybody else who really had that. They won't look over your shoulder to see who else was in the room. And you had their undivided attention, which is pretty heady stuff. But you also have a sense that he's really interested in what you have to say. I know.
Exactly, you're not. Okay, now what year are we talking about here?
Let's see, that was 74, I guess. Maybe spring of 74, and then at Norman in 75.
So Hillary was on the scene in 70. When did Bill become governor?
Oh, that was after I came up here, maybe 80.
80, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
We went down in 83.
83. Mm-hmm. When you meet Bill and know Bill, when Norman comes down that period of time, you're with Matthew, you're living in Russellville, and you're teaching in high school, into high school art. Right. Are you happy?
I'm very happy. It's one of the happiest periods of my life.
Why was it happy?
Because I was free. I was living with my son and could do what I wanted to. I had my own job. I was independent. I had a lot of friends, going out a lot, doing a lot of fun things. It was just a real happy period in my life.
Do you ever regret having left it?
No, I don't. I would have had to change my life sooner or later. I would have just, met somebody down there and gotten married. And, you can't go on being a teenager forever, I guess. It's just kind of what I was doing at the time.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I don't know what I would have done. That's the road not taken. You always wonder what would have happened. But my goal at that point was to teach in college. I was going to go back to school and get my MFA and probably teach at Tech or something, teach painting, teach art. Probably married some other professor and had an academic life. I don't know. Who knows what I would have been happy? I think I would have been happy. I think I would have been happy doing almost anything, really. I mean, not almost anything, but I think if you have a happy kind of personality, a contented kind of personality, you're happy doing many things. If you're not happy, you're not happy doing anything.
What is always I've always admired about you is that you've never, and there's not many people in my life like this that I've known. Richard was this way. You just you always struck me as someone who isn't in no serious ways impressed by fame or impressed by money or power. You sort of grind through it.
I wasn't really. And I didn't leave Arkansas because I was dying to get out of, old Hickey, Arkansas. I loved it. I was having a great time there. And I guess with Norman, the thing that impressed me was his mind. I never run across anybody with a mind remotely like his. He was just fascinating. And I never knew what he was going to say next. It was,
you said it was saying about Bill Clinton that would make him attractive.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it the intelligence? I'm talking about just Clinton. I mean, because I don't know Clinton that well. I mean, Norman I know, but the thing about Norman is the unpredictability. Mm-hmm. Is that a lot of the fun of Norman is you think he's constantly surprising. Right. I'm just having a conversation.
Exactly.
And it's okay, and that's the quality that he had. It seems to me that was young about him. Mm-hmm. Because little boys are that way. Suddenly things pop out. They go, where the hell did that come from?
They get to a new world every day. It's it's almost like, where did that come from? I mean, they don't see things like other people do at all. They're just like a little boy.
Yeah, I mean, but they see the world with new eyes. That's what, I mean, you're absolutely right. It is. They see the world with new eyes. So you're teaching high school. You've got math. Are you dating around?
I'm dating around things. So many guys. I'm dating potters and painters, mostly artists, and a lawyer and a druggist and I don't know who all. I mean, I'm dating a whole bunch of guys. Bill Clinton was just one more. I mean, I was just one of his girlfriends. He had so many women throwing themselves at him. You know, it was kind of the period where all of us who had gotten married in our late teens and early 20s and had gotten our first divorces were on the second go around now.
Right. Yeah, right.
So people that you missed on the first go around you were dating now, like people I dated when I was, you know, a young teenager. I was seeing them again, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but there was also a wonderful period. Now, this is the period I'm writing about now.
Oh, yeah.
This wonderful period that was on the cusp between the sexual revolution had been won, the war was over, and it was before AIDS.
Absolutely.
It was that period that lasted about 6 years.
That bright and shining period.
Yeah.
We were right in the middle of it.
When we were free. And we were still young. And all the
young and beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, young, and the restraints had fallen away. So tell me about me. So anyway, there you are, and how did you meet Norman? How did that come up? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, okay, well, that's, I mean, when I give you this book, it's all written down. But you know, I mean, I know that it's just kind of a well-told story. I was...
Not name of it, no.
No, I was,
You okay?
Well, yeah, let me just skip that part and read it, okay? You know that part so well, I can't tell it one more time.
Tell me about coming to New York and the day you arrived when I was here. Do you remember that?
The day you were here? Did I meet you?
Yeah. Let's get to the important thing.
Let's get to the important thing. Where did we meet? Remind me.
Here.
We met here.
No,
Was it that party? Was it the party of the coleslaw?
Norma had gone out of town. I hadn't met you.
Yeah.
And Norma said that I think you were staying here. And Norma said go over to Brooklyn and check on her. That's basically what he said.
Yeah.
Go check on her.
Yeah.
And I came in, and my memory is there was a piano here.
Right. That's right.
And I came in, and there was someone else here, and I don't remember who it was, and they left.
I think it was Jose. Jose came over. There's a period that Jose came over with a whole bunch of friends. I wasn't feeling well, and they came over and cheered me up, and I guess you kind of, it's funny, I don't remember this.
No, I came over, and whoever was here, maybe it was left. And I said, and I got really, really chatty. And I said something like, "You're a Southern Baptist?" And I started saying, if my memory serves me correct, it seems that my memory is correct. There was a piano.
We started singing hymns.
We started singing hymns.
He always do every time we get together, we sing hymns. We're good.
I think what we were singing, I think my memory is you sat down at the my hands are completely gone. I sat down at the piano, and we.
Well, must be I was a really good piano player.
And it was. I come to the garden alone.
I know.
But that's the song we sang. And we started laughing, and that's my memory.
It's supper time.
Yeah,
and we sang that at your work party too. Remember?
That's right.
When I was pregnant, I was like huge and pregnant up on it was Studio 54. Was that where you were?
New York.
New York, and we were up there in the spotlight. I was out to hear we were singing.
I remember that.
Come home, it's supper time.
I remember that. So when you came to New York, tell me that you're coming here and you're feeling about the city.
It was my town when I got the plane. I loved it so much. I never wanted to go back. It was just my town. I loved it. Everything about it. I used to dream about coming to New York. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a model. Before I went to college or did any of that, I used to read Glamour and Vogue and those magazines. And before I got married, there was a woman who was a school teacher, a second grade school teacher. She had a daughter who was a model in New York. And I wrote to the girl who I knew slightly and sent her some photographs. So she was with Eileen Ford, and she gave them to Eileen Ford. He sent me back a form letter, politely saying, "Find a different career. This is not for you." So I never came to New York. I didn't know anyone and had no contact. So I decided, well, this was God telling me I better get married instead.
When you came to New York, it's because Norris brought you here. Right?
Yeah, I came to visit him.
And that must have been when I met you.
I think it was after I had come back the first time I just came for a visit in June, and then I moved back in August for good.
It was summertime.
Yeah, I came in June, and he said, "Why don't you move here? Why don't you just pack up your stuff and bring your kid and move here and live with me?" And I said, "Okay." Yeah, so I went back home and sold my house and sold my car and packed up my stuff and quit my job and moved up here.
Why did you do that?
Because I was ready for a change. I wanted to be with him, and I wanted to be in New York, and it was just one of those things you do. If you have to ask yourself why you're doing it, you'll never do it. Sometimes you just do stuff.
I'll tell you what I thought.
What did you do?
When I met you, I thought you were fabulous in a way. I would say this. I'm sure you have the transcribe. I'll give you the translation because I'm saying that when I met you, and I met some of the other wives,
right? Who
were tough cookies, and he missed me a little. In no short order.
In no short order, exactly. And a few others who he wasn't married to.
And you seemed.
Well, if I'd known anything about him when I met him, I would have probably been nervous.
You didn't. What did you know about him?
Nothing. I knew nothing about him.
Well, you heard of him.
I knew he was a famous writer. I knew he had been married a bunch of times and had a bunch of kids, and that he had been in war with Francis, who introduced us. And
but he didn't want to fight one.
I knew he'd been in the war.
Oh, the war, I'm sorry.
In World War II.
He's Scots, I have.
The war. In the war. I'm in the war.
No, it's just that my ears fine.
Of course, the eyes and the ears. I guess I didn't know a whole lot about him. I just kind of found it out bit by bit.
That I can put it. So, when you came to New York, the thing is, you just suddenly up and said, "This is it. Goodbye."
This is it. Goodbye, Arkansas. And who knows? I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know I was going to be with this man forever and ever. I just had always wanted to come to New York, and this was a chance. And I was young, and if I was going to do it, it's going to be now. And I was in love. I really was crazy about him. He was just like nobody I'd ever met before.
Yeah. The interview's normal. Like what I showed is, we're speak probably good now.
Let's come make a phone call.
They don't pay shit, probably. I just like said, I didn't get a chance to write about you.
It'd be fun.
Anyway, so you come to New York, and your mother from but did you have any idea before you came here, honestly, or if you didn't, when did you, of the sort of position he holds or held in New York? New York now, cultural-wise, with his controversial.
I didn't really know. I was very surprised. I went to a few parties with him when we first got here, and one of the first parties, Lizzie Hardwick came up to me and said,
Elizabeth Hardwick?
Yeah, Elizabeth Hardwick came up to me and said, I mean, they were just fawning over me, Elizabeth Hardwick and Bella Abzug and some big, tough, black feminist woman, I can't remember her name. They were all talking to me like, give me their phone numbers. Like, if you ever need us, call us, and we'll come and get you in the middle of the night. They were really concerned about me, that I was going to be, something awful was going to happen. I kept thinking, what is this all about? I was like, well, thank you. It's okay. I'm fine. And Elizabeth, I'll never forget it, said, well, whatever else you do, just don't let that man make you pregnant. And I was in such shock. I mean, how dare this woman? I've never even met this woman before. I mean, how dare she say something like that to me? I was in such a rage.
This was Elizabeth Hardwick?
Elizabeth Hardwick said that to me.
Well, what did she do?
She meant, this is an awful man, don't let him make you pregnant like he has everybody else, I guess. I don't know what she meant.
Well, I knew a lot of Mary McCarthy was another one that had him in her. I mean, what was it about, what is it, just generally speaking, about women, why did women have such deep feelings about it? I don't know. I can't figure it out. I really don't know why he was so reviled and hated. I mean, he said some stupid things, and that book, The Prisoner of Sex, I mean, that was kind of, I mean, I laughed through most of it. It was just a sort of funny book where he said stupid things like women should be kept in cages, and I mean, that wasn't serious. I mean, in a funny way, I guess it's good that I didn't know a lot of these things and these attitudes about him, because I made my own judgment, Well, it's, but no, I mean, with Norman, I always had this, with Norman, my sense of Norman, talk about Norman's writing. Every so often, Norman just had to shoot his mouth off. And he didn't give a shit. Basically, what he was doing was venting. And they got that out of the system, and then he moved on to something else. Yeah. And then 10 years later, he would say, I don't understand why people are.
I know, and it's like, just because he said it doesn't mean he means it 10 years later.
What's wrong with these people?
Like, I didn't even mean to do that stuff. No, it's hilarious. I mean,
what did you think of it? Did you have what was your sense of, I mean, I know what people's sense of it was, but I know what, when you arrived in New York, it was all, everybody.
About me?
And there was a lot of tisk going on.
Oh, yeah? Well, okay.
In the sense that, oh, here it goes again, and who is this little gold digger this time, and who the hell does she think she is, and blah, 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 blah. And I remember when you remember when you came out to Hampton and Church Mailer, you came up for a weekend and I had dinner for you.
Yeah, it was very fun.
And one of the reasons I did it, is because it just seemed to me that you always, I thought to myself, I told you on the phone that you could have anybody you want. You give them right next to the others. I said, anybody you want to be there will be there, even if they have to take a plane from New York to come out, they will be there, which is true.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, because there were a lot of ragging going on. I'm talking about social sex.
Yeah, I had no idea.
About, here he goes again, and he's doing it.
Arkansas, and she.
Well, yeah, he's going to go down to Arkansas, and how dare you, because you were sort of presented as if the way people talk is that Norman, I never, of all people, Netta Logan? Mm-hmm. Of all people, Netta Logan went on this rampage about you and Norman. I had never met you. And I was at her apartment at a dinner. She had a dinner at her apartment with Josh. And Josh was always trying to get in my pants. And Norman came up, and the way people talk is that you were 6 years old, 8 years old, this child girlfriend he had brought from the sticks, and they married their cousins, that kind of, right? Right, and he was going to, and why do you think she's here, that kind of crap. And I thought, I didn't get it. I thought, Jesus, but it passed. Mm-hmm. You didn't want anybody over.
I guess, I had no clue any of this was going on. No. Well, no, obviously later I realized some of that, but.
Well, there were a lot. I tell you, Norman was a big catch.
He was?
Yeah.
Why?
Norman was because he was famous. He was unmarried.
He was unmarried. No, he was married.
You know what I mean? This guy was he was a prize.
He acted like he was unmarried.
Yeah, he acted like he was married. But remember when he I wrote about it, the thing about Norman with the Jermaine Greer thing. Mm-hmm. And it was with Carolyn, I think, at the time. Yeah. Women had, this was the guy you could get out of a marriage, and this is the guy you could steal. Mm-hmm. And suddenly you show up, and I'm being honest with you, I think you threw a wrench in a lot of plans, a lot of women. No, I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah. Wow. A lot of people thought themselves as business daily, including you're not going to believe.
I was in love. I really was crazy about him. He was just like nobody I'd ever met before.
Yeah. Interviews, like what I said is, which we probably did.
I'll try to make a phone call.
They don't say shit about it. What was your feeling about the world he brought you into?
Oh, I just loved every minute of it. We just had a great time. It's all these wonderful people and pretty clothes, and I didn't have any pretty clothes then, but that's a funny story.
Well, tell me.
Well, I had no money to come here, obviously, and no clothes to speak of. And we were invited to dinner at Austria Uncle's house. And Francois, his wife,
all your friends were very happy.
It was so wonderful. So I had nothing to wear, and I went to Bloomingdale's, and
she put the D in the Loretta.
She did. On the law too.
The law.
But I bought what was basically a nightgown. It was.
What?
I bought a nightgown. It was like a nightgown. It was a satin, very plain white slip dress, kind of a chiffon thing to go over it. So I went up to your house, and we had a lovely dinner. I sat next to Sam Walton, which was great fun. We talked about Arkansas.
Sam
Walton from Walmart. Yeah. It was just. I just fell in love with the De Laurentiis and all of that night. And Francois spent kind of whispered in my ear, said, "Call me tomorrow. I'm going to take you up to Oscar's studio and we'll get you some clothes."
Oh, that's sweet.
So I went, and for the next, I don't know, 20 years, I used to go and get Oscar's runway samples. I mean, it was incredible. Oh, yeah, Francois was so sweet to me. And I loved his clothes so much. And, I fit the runway samples. I was model